Hello dear World of Warcraft friends, welcome back to a new video on my channel. This time it's more of a little reminder video for you and a small update on the current situation in Time Walking Dungeons. Because the whole thing, at least it seems that way to me, is really bad right now. In terms of player numbers, it's a mess. So as a DPS, at least you can't find a group for ages. You should keep an eye on that, and most importantly, you should get started and get your buffs, meaning mastery of the turbulent timeways, if you still want a chance at the Brood of Vyranoth mount. Because if you don't start today, you won't get it anymore, at least not in the current cycle. I assume that Blizzard will bring this mount back in the future, just like all the other mounts from Mastery of the Turbulent Timeways. But if you don't start today and get the buff, you won't be able to get this mount anymore. Why exactly? I'll explain all of that to you in this episode. It's actually pretty self-explanatory, you know, I have to say that, but I still want to clarify it nonetheless. Why is this video only coming out now? It definitely would have been interesting to hear about it earlier. Whoever says that, I totally agree. But to be honest, I have to say I totally forgot about it myself. And now I myself, even though I wasn't affected by it, I myself started panicking. Now I started doing all these things here at 11 p.m. so I don't get into trouble later on. So let's take a look at what this is about. If you like all this, if you don't want to miss any news, tips, tricks, and so on, I would be really happy if you leave a like and subscribe. It's free and it's the best way to support me so the channel can keep growing. I would really appreciate it. And yeah, with that, let's go. All in all, the Brood of Vyranoth is this time's Turbulent Timeways mount reward. And you can see it here. You need to have the Master of the Turbulent Timeways 5 for it. You unlock the mount through the achievement. What is the Master of the Turbulent Timeways? And here, let's quickly go through it now, because there are always players who might not know about it yet. And honestly, I want to cover things that are relevant for everyone. During Turbulent Timeways 5, become Master of the Timeways for 4 weeks. For that, you need to upgrade this buff up here, Knowledge of the Timeways, to Master of the Timeways. That happens when you have 4 stacks of Knowledge of the Timeways. You get 1 stack for each time walking dungeon you complete. So basically, all in all, you run 4 time walking dungeons. Then you'll have the Master of the Turbulent Timeways and you're set for this week. You could actually cheese the whole thing in the War Within. Back then, you could do the achievement in 1 week on different characters and get the achievement and the mount, but that's not possible anymore. So you really have to get the achievement every week for 4 weeks straight, otherwise you're out of luck. And yes, that's the crucial point. You have to put in at least 4 weeks. After this week, however, the Turbulent Timeways will only run for 3 more weeks. That means if you haven't reached 1 out of 4 by today, you won't have enough event weeks left to get this mount. And personally, I think it's a very beautiful mount. Beautiful mount. It looks incredible. I would definitely like to have it. And that's why, yeah, we're going back in now, investing the time and getting the buffs. Like I said, I had 1 out of 4. I could have theoretically just risked it. But I also have to say I haven't really been motivated for time walking in the last few days. Why? We'll get to that in a moment. And I prefer to play it a bit safer. I'd rather have a little buffer now than really have to rely on the last week. Because that's something I've noticed up to this point. Time walking dungeons are currently, for whatever reason, not really that popular. Back in the day, you could log in as a DPS at pretty much any time, and you would get into a dungeon within 4 or 5 minutes. Nowadays, I tried this with my hunter. Sure, it was late, midnight, but I also did the whole thing tonight at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and I always had to wait at least 10 minutes to get a dungeon invite. So here's another reminder. If you can, it's best to play as a tank or healer. You simply save a lot of time in the queues. And yeah, if you have no choice but to play as DPS, plan a bit of time for it. That's why I really would have liked to release this video earlier, so you'd have more time for it and it wouldn't be so last minute. That's definitely on me. But yeah, if you want to have these 4 buffs or these 4 stacks as a DPS, you shouldn't just say, yeah, I'll just do that in half an hour. It probably won't work without a static group. So I can already tell you that's not going to happen. If you just go in there randomly, you'll have to spend a bit more time. Another interesting factor, that's why I would recommend doing all of this on a character that you're leveling. I've already made a video about this. Again, I'm mentioning it here so that you might save some time in the coming weeks. When you reach Master of the Turbulent Timeways, it's enough to just play 1 dungeon in the following weeks. So, in other words, if I have 4 stacks here, I'm at 2 out of 4 on the achievement. In the new week, I just need to log in on my hunter here, run 1 additional dungeon because Master of the Turbulent Timeways is still active. The whole thing gets refreshed when I run a dungeon, and that then puts the counter at 3 out of 4. But that only works if you don't let the buff expire. The buff lasts for 2 or 3 hours. I'm personally not so sure right now. And yeah, that's why I prefer to do it on characters you're leveling. For example, if I were to do it on my main, I'd probably also be playing Mythic Plus or other stuff in the meantime. That means the buff will eventually run out simply because I'm playing. And then, yeah, theoretically I'd have to run 4 dungeons again. An alternative would be to do this on a character you log in with a lot. And before the buff runs out, you just run another time-walking dungeon to refresh the buff again and again. It depends on how much you play. It's an okay alternative. But I would still do it on an alt where you know you probably won't play that often. Because in this case, I get the buff on the hunter, then I'm at 2 out of 4. Then I log in next week, do a time-walking dungeon, get to 3 out of 4. And then I'll probably leave him for a week. Then in the final week, I just do another dungeon, and that puts me at 4 out of 4. And I've managed it with as little time investment as possible. Yeah, that's the current plan. And that's the way I would recommend to you at this point to get the achievement. In the end, you can do as you like, but here's an important note. If you don't have at least 1 out of 4 today, you won't be able to get the mount anymore. And with that, thank you very much for watching. Like I said, please leave a like, subscribe for more, and we'll see you in the next video. Have a great time and take care.